Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge. This is match day. It's time to go to war and Erik Ten Hag has come out fighting, demanding more from his Manchester United players in what has been an absolutely fantastic response to these so-called leaks that are coming out of Manchester United. I think if anything, it's backfired. It's backfired against those who are trying to undermine the manager. I think that realistically what you've got here is a situation where Erik Ten Hag is actually in a stronger position than maybe he was a couple of days ago. We'll get into all of that. We'll also talk about what Ten Hag has said in relation to he wants more from his players. He's taken responsibility in relation to why they're not doing the things that he wants them to do, but he's confident that that will happen. Also want to talk about Jaden Sancho. I think some of the criticism that Sancho is getting at the moment is going a little bit over the top. I don't know how accurate these pictures are, but I've seen a few people posting this morning pictures of Jaden Sancho with Jesse Lingard, and people are saying, well, this just says everything about him if he's hanging around with people like that. I think that's really narrow-minded because Jesse Lingard is a player that you think you know because he's played for Man United and he's acted a bit of a prat in TikTok. So what a bad influence he is for Jaden Sancho and what a waste Lingard's career has been. So Sancho's hanging around with a waster. But the reality is, Marcus Rashford's been very close to Jesse Lingard and has had a very, very good career. And what about the people that Jaden Sancho hangs around with that are worse than Lingard but aren't ex-footballers? So it just seems silly when you focus on one photo of Sancho and Lingard. I think it's a bit unfair. Ten Hag spoke about Sancho. He won't be playing today, and it's down to him if he wants to play for Manchester United again. That's the failing of Sancho. It's not who he hangs around with. It's not what computer game he plays. The failing of Sancho is why he's not playing for Manchester United, and that is down to him, as we know. Also, a little bit about Rasmus Højlund as well. But look, let's hit it straight off the start. I really want to just get straight into this. Like I say, Erik Ten Hag was directly asked about the leaks yesterday, and this is what he had to say. He said that I don't know if it's a leak, but I know my opinion and I know my players, and everyone can make suggestions whether we're okay with that at Manchester United. You have to win every game, so it doesn't change anything. And I think that, look, we'll talk about what Ten Hag had to say about the running and also about the other thing that they tried to derail. We must keep a track of this as well. It's not just the Sancho story, the Maguire story, the Greenwood story, the Anthony story. We also had another story this week about how Ten Hag is using an agency to buy players, and this is bad for Man United. I mean, we've moved on from that very, very quickly, but he was asked about it in the press conference yesterday. It's a barrage. It's an absolute barrage of assault on Ten Hag. And interestingly enough, when you talk about the link, little bit of more story this morning I can give you around the leaks from the dressing room. Now, I'm not 100% sure this is correct, but you know what? When people are writing stories saying dressing room leaks, I mean, what does that even mean? So if people can write a story about it, I think we're well within our rights to give you information that we get and just say, look, not 100% sure it's true, but this is what we're hearing at the moment. So what we're hearing at the moment is the dressing room leaks that was potentially what they're talking about in the Manchester Evening News. What we've been told this morning is that the dressing room leaks are highly unlikely to be a player ringing up Samuel Luckhurst. What's likely to have happened here is a player is not happy with their situation. They've relayed this to friends or agents who have then relayed it to somebody else who has then relayed it to the Manchester Evening News. So this could be third or fourth party information. But what we were told today, and this is from somebody very, very close to the club, is that it's very unlikely in relation to the mood in the dressing room that it's somebody in the dressing room picking up the phone to Manchester Evening News. It's more likely, and they think, that it's a disgruntled player that maybe didn't get a move in the summer, that maybe thought they would stay and should have took a move in the summer and doesn't like their lack of game time, who are moaning to their entourage, who are then moaning to somebody else who is then telling the Manchester Evening News. So I think that's probably logical because we need to call this out. I actually think that the way that you have reacted, and I'm not just talking about United Stand viewers, Manchester United fans, it's been amazing. The amount of social media posts I've seen over the last 12 hours of people calling out that article and calling out the toxicity around the manager, and then other people saying things about Man United and saying, oh, you can't use the Glazers as an excuse. And people are in their replies going, do you know anything about our football club? Shut up and pipe down. There's a reaction from this fan base that's got me right up for the game tonight. It's like defiance. There is a real reaction in this fan base of, hold on. We've been here so many times. We've seen it with Mourinho. We've seen it with Ollie. We've seen it with Van Gaal. They all deserve to go, but we're nowhere near that with Ten Hag, and you are trying to force us down that road, and we will not walk down that road because you are way too premature. And it's backfired. And actually, what they've done is they've pushed too far and they've pushed too soon. Because what they've done is they think that they've got license to manipulate you and turn you against the manager, but they've jumped too early. And now everyone's looking at them and going, hold on a minute, you've gone way too early. And now they've lost their credibility. They've now lost their power because people are like, you're wrong. You're bang out of order to do that. And they're getting called out for it. And that weakens them. So I think it's fantastic. I think it's absolutely brilliant what you are doing, which is calling it out, because they can't get away with it. It's bang out of order to be trying to undermine this manager so soon. It's not the right time, and the fans aren't going to stand for it. And I tell you what, I never thought I'd be so excited about an 8 o'clock game away to Burnley, but I cannot wait for it. I absolutely cannot wait for it. But it's absolutely fantastic what Ten Hag has said there, because, you know, that is generally what the feeling is at United. If there is a leak in the dressing room, they're a bloody coward and they're playing hide and seek. And that doesn't mean it's Scott McTominay. I know he does that on the pitch. I'm not saying he's doing that in the dressing room. But, like, there is no evidence of disgruntled players in the dressing room. Like, nobody is going to Ten Hag and saying, don't like the way you treated Sancho, don't like your football. It's just not happening. So the dressing room leak is probably third or fourth information. And in fairness to the players, you know, they shouldn't be gobbing off. But I think if a player is not happy and they're talking to their agent or their family, and then their family or agent tells somebody else, and then that somebody else gets in contact with a journalist, I mean, the player's got to be a lot more careful than that. And it's happened before. I think it happened with Maguire, didn't it, last year? But this is the problem that Ollie spoke about and we've spoken about. These players play for Manchester United, but then they play for Marcus Rashford FC or, you know, Bruno Fernandes. I'm just throwing random players here. I don't know what the entourage around Bruno is, to be honest, but they have this entourage around them that's there to protect them. So if I go to training with Manchester United this morning and Ten Hag says, Goldbridge, you're shit, you're not even in the matchday squad, and I go home and my agent's there and I go, you know what, I can't fucking believe it. I'm not in the squad. I've worked really hard. I'm better than that bloody Varane. I'm much better than Ronaldo, Rashford, and I'm better than Ronaldo. That's why he left. He knew I was better than that. And my agent goes, all right, okay. And then he picks up the phone to a paper and goes, yeah, there's dressing room unrest, you know. Yeah, some of the players are just not happy. Bye. And that's how it works, because they're there to protect the player. And that's the way modern football works. Morning, mate. Hope you're doing well. Do you think if it was Poch, we would get the same treatment from the media? No, I don't think he would, Mikhail, and I think it needs to be called out. Welcome to the Members Club, JK. Really appreciate that. Just want to talk very, very quickly about a few other things. I want to talk about what Ten Hag has said in the embargoed section, which came out late last night. But there was a couple of things, and I know Beth may have mentioned this, but I'm not Beth, and Beth is not me. This was what Ten Hag was asked about yesterday in relation to his agency being involved in the transfers. So this was another thing that they've tried, and I don't know where this originated from, but it wasn't. I don't think it was the Manchester Evening News. I think it was another outlet. Basically saying this week that Ten Hag has a very close relationship with an agency, and this is having a detrimental effect on Manchester United because they're just buying players that the manager wants. And Gary Neville said it at the start of the week that, you know, we've got another manager who's being allowed to buy the players that he wants, and that's not a good thing. I don't really get that. I think the manager has to be allowed to manage. You know, this is the problem. Van Gaal said it. Mourinho said it. The reality is that many Man United managers over the last 10 years have got third, fourth, fifth, sixth choices, or nothing. I mean, you think about Mourinho. I still to this day say that one of the biggest transfers and you can clip this, you can say it's controversial, but this is what I think about football, and I think this is why it sets us apart as a community. That, you know, sometimes we get mislabeled as people who don't watch the channel, and just pretend it's some shitty AFTV from Man United, which it's just not. We don't have those conversations. We have in-depth conversations, and this would be an example of that. I think the biggest transfer that we didn't do in the last decade, and it'll shock you, and it would have made a massive difference, was Ivan Perisic from Inter Milan when Jose Mourinho wanted him. Perisic at that time was 27, 28. He was one of the best wingers, I believe, underrated wingers in Europe. We've never had a person who can put the ball in the box. We probably still don't. And Perisic, both-footed, will put the crosses into the box all day. And United walked away from that deal because they didn't want to pay an extra $5 million. I still think to this day, and from that day, that deal would have done us great. But it's a prime example of the consistency in United's recruitment, that they don't always get the players the manager wants, or they'll go and get the 4th, 5th or 6th choice. So when Ten Hag was asked about his agency being involved in transfers, he said it can't be conflict of interest because we make very good agreements about it from the start. How we cooperate in the transfer, for players' decisions, transfers, it's always 50-50. And then he went on to say that we both have a veto, the club, represented by John Mortar, and me, so there can never be a distraction. I mean, the fact that the manager of Manchester United is having to answer a question like that in a press conference when we've just lost to, Brighton, Arsenal, Bayern Munich and Spurs, to be asked questions about his transfer policy. Again, I said this on the show last night. It's like he's a fucking prime minister. It's like, I almost think we're not far away with Ten Hag from having a picture of him on his bike smiling at a woman walking across the road and him having to justify what did that smile mean. I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it? But it's almost like that. They're going into everything. I feel, the club need to really protect him because they are going after him on absolutely. This was a nothing story. This was a nothing story. The most logical reason that Ten Hag is using an agency for players that he trusts is because he doesn't trust Man United's recruitment. And hello, neither do I, and neither do you. But that's now a big story. And you know why it's a story? Because we've lost 3 of our first 5 games. And therefore, Ten Hag's a failure. And therefore, Ten Hag's transfers are a failure. If we'd won our first 5 games, this story wouldn't have happened. So it is all about just trying to undermine the manager. But as I said, I'm rejuvenated, excited, defiant, and I think the fan base is as well. We've got to beat Burnley tonight, and I've not felt like this about a game for a long time. I'm absolutely pumped up for it tonight. I just feel like it's that siege mentality that we probably haven't had for a long time. I don't need the media on board. I don't need the journalists on board. I don't need rivals on board, certainly not. I don't need the mainstream on board. I need the manager, the players and the fans. And that's what I feel we have at the moment. I feel we've got a great opportunity today where fuck everybody else, the fans, the players and the manager, well, the players that care and the manager, we seem to be on the same page of defiance. And I'm just, bring it on, bring it on. Forget the haters outside. Neville was calling out the director of football by saying Erik Ten Hag does the signing, says Rory. Well, look, ultimately, Erik Ten Hag needs to pick the players. That is without question. And anyway, let's go to the embargoed section and have a look at some of the stuff that he said last night, Erik Ten Hag. I do want to talk about that Sancho story, and I want to talk a little bit about Rasmus Højlund. Ollie never got such loaded questions in his press conference. Also, Erik Ten Hag just outed Murta as the one who vetoed the McTominay transfer, says Julian. Yes, yeah, and look, this is it. This is it. If you look, you will find, Julian. And effectively, what Ten Hag was saying about the transfer policy is that there is a 50-50 thing. The club and me, we can veto each other. I don't even agree with that. I don't agree with that in the current situation. If I'm Erik Ten Hag and then you've got a Pratt who's got a 50% vote as well, I'm screwed. If I've got Ralph Rangnick or I've got Paul Mitchell or I've got a really good sporting director, then we're going to perform better with a 50-50 vote. But if I've got 50% and a Pratt's got 50%, then I'm going to struggle. And that's the problem with United. We definitely 100%, and Gary Neville's right, we need a proper elite sporting director who supports the manager with knowledge and experience. And we just do not have that. We don't have that at all. Interesting, I just throw this in. I mean, I'm not saying Robbie Savage is the oracle of good information. I mean, some would say, he's really... who is he? But the reality is, it was a quote that I've seen floating around this morning. and it is a news show. And he basically said Man United don't look stronger than they did 12 months ago, and I shudder to think of the meltdown among the supporters if they come a cropper at Burnley tonight. Look, I just really, it's an opinion, and he also goes on to talk about, I don't understand why Manchester United didn't go and get Harry Kane last summer. Why didn't they push the boat out for Harry Kane? And that sort of defeats your first comment, Robbie, because you say, United, we're going to have a meltdown and we're a worse team than we were 12 months ago. I can sort of take that on board, but then when you say, why didn't we push the boat out for Harry Kane, it just exposes every pundit and every person who says we should have pushed the boat out for Harry Kane. It exposes their lack of interest in football. I think there's a deeper interest in football these days, predominantly from football fans who consume it for hours every day. They think about it, they read about it, they talk about it, and because they're talking about it every day. Look, if I want to learn about, petrochemicals, I know nothing. But if I read about it every day and watch things on YouTube about it every day for 5 hours, I'll become an expert in it. And I think a lot of these pundits and others do not consume it like that. And that's why you get this and look, it's on the mainstream. I'm not picking out Robbie Savage here. I'm talking about everybody. It's on the mainstream every bloody day. Why didn't Man United push the boat out for Harry Kane? And you feel like going, why did the vegetarian not eat that beef burger? They weren't hungry? No, they're starving. It's got beef in it. They can't eat it, right? Why did Man United not buy Harry Kane? Because they didn't want to buy him? No. It's because Spurs categorically would not sell him to a Premier League club. End of story. End of story. And I don't know why we're still talking about Harry Kane. Because Spurs wouldn't sell him to us or Chelsea or any other Premier League club. So we just need to move on from it. The Harry Kane, again, it feels to me like they're trying to create a story that Ten Hag fucked up. And I'll just say it. I'll just say it for what it is, right? What they're trying to do, welcome to Members Club, Donal. What they're trying to do is they're trying to make out that Ten Hag has made a mistake going for Rasmus Højlund when he should have gone for Harry Kane. That's what they're trying to do. I almost feel like an applause should come in here now. That's the story, isn't it? They're beating around the bush a little bit, but that's the story. Man United shouldn't have gone for an unproven 20-year-old. They should have gone for Harry Kane. The problem is, and there's two big problems with this. One, the fan base is too educated to fall for that. And two, Rasmus Højlund has already scored a goal in his first 2 games and looked impressive. So it's sort of killing that off. But they are still pushing the Harry Kane story. But we couldn't sign Harry Kane. We just couldn't sign Harry Kane. There's no point. I would love Harry Kane and Højlund. I think it would be a great front two to have. Alternate, etc. But we couldn't buy him, and we need to move on from it. It's as simple as that. Anyway, Erik Ten Hag was talking about Rasmus, actually. He said that Erik Ten Hag was not talking about Rasmus Højlund. Sorry, let me correct that. There's been an article in The Athletic about Rasmus Højlund, which I will applaud The Athletic there. I think it's Laurie Whitwell as well. Very, very clever when one of your colleagues is getting absolutely battered for trying to undermine the manager. Very clever to write an article about an open goal. So Laurie Whitwell has wrote a very positive piece about Rasmus Højlund this morning, which will certainly deflect any fire on him and keep it on the Manchester Evening News. So as a journalist, I respect that. Write something positive, get behind the club, get behind the player, because that's what the fans want. And journalists need to be. I predict we'll see a lot more positivity from people like Laurie Whitwell, Samuel Luckhurst, James Ducker, Simon Stone, all the Man United correspondents. I expect we'll see a lot more positivity over the next week or so, because they'll be absolutely eyes wide open to the reaction to that story from the Manchester Evening News yesterday, and it's backfired massively. And what it's shown them is fans have got no appetite for negative stuff around Ten Hag or this football club at the moment. Now, if we lose 6-0 tonight, that will probably change. That's the way football goes. But I think they've misread the room. It's like turning up to a funeral in a clown outfit, thinking it's a party, fancy dress, you've misread the room and you look like a clown. We're giving information. Okay, let's talk about what Erik Ten Hag had to say about Manchester United conceding goals. So basically, this is where he's demanding more. And he said, look, against Spurs, we didn't run enough. We had a game last season where we did the same, where we didn't run. But I think Bayern, we did our best from physical outputs. But I think we didn't always run in the right moment. So he still wants more from his players. We've shown that we can do it because last year we had the most clean sheets in the Premier League because of the team, because we defended very well as a team. So we have to get back to those standards. And I think he does have to get back to a clean sheet today would be as big as the 3 points for me. Erik Ten Hag says, I'm pushing the team and I'm demanding from the team from the start of the season, but they're human beings. They're not robots. So why are they not doing it? I'm trying to find out, try to get and give the solutions. And I'm also trying to motivate the players to do the job. I mean, that is a throwaway statement as much as it's a huge statement. So what he's saying is we're doing everything in training. Like, I'm pushing the team, I'm demanding from the team. Everything is right, but they're human beings, and I'm trying to find out why they're not doing it. Why aren't they giving the solutions? And I'm trying to motivate them to do the job. I mean, it's a great statement from Ten Hag because it's honest. And there'll be people in the chat quite rightly saying, well, that's a failure on the manager. You know, if the players aren't responding to the manager, that's a failure on him. And I think he's admitting that. But he's also saying, I don't really understand why the players aren't doing it. I think I know. I think it's fatigue, Eric. Look at Liverpool at the start of last season, after a horribly intense season before that. Look at United last season, after a horribly intense season. I just think physically, I don't think these players, and possibly mentally, are in the same place they were last season. So when Robbie Savage says, United aren't the same team as they were 12 months ago, it's not as simple as loading FIFA up, adding a few new signings and being better because you're added to the team. What about fatigue? What about mentality? And I think this is a problem, and that's why we've got injuries. He says, as a manager, you have many tools, and I make sure I use them. I will not say all because there are many ways to do it. You have to be creative, you have to be innovative, but you can be sure I use many. You do it in groups, you do it in teams, you do it individually, you do it over a video, you do it in personal talks. You have many tools to coach to make sure the team is in the right direction. And I think that's just an affirmation of the obsession that Erik Ten Hag has, that he's talking to players individually, in groups, with video analysis. He'll be trying absolutely everything. And that is why we've got to get behind him, because he's obsessively trying to get this team to a place that we want to be. But obviously, we're aware of the toxic elements in the club, whether it's ownership, whether it's incompetence, whether it's some players in the dressing room. He says, you can't say that the spirit isn't right. I think we have other problems than that. At Man United, you've got to win every game, so it doesn't change anything. I don't know if it's a leak in the dressing room, but I know what your opinion is, and I know my players, and that's just a manager defiantly backing his his players. In relation to the right wing, he says we've got options. We will see how we fill it in. As I said, we have options, but they also have to be available. But then you have to get the routines in, but the principles and rules, they are clear. I think he's just talking about Anthony and Sancho there. And then asked about conceding goals quickly on restarts, which is something we've spoken about a lot. We concede a lot of goals after an event, whether we've conceded one, we concede quickly another one, or whether we score one, we concede quickly after that as well, which we've seen against Bayern and Arsenal. He said, look, I'm not concerned, but we are aware of it. Of course, you can't close your eyes for things like this. We coach the players and we coach the team with that fact. For me, I said this before the Bayern Munich game, for me, that comes down to concentration and confidence. And it's those two words, CC. Confidence comes from scoring a goal, and we've seen that, and we need to do more of that. But it's so important that you concentrate with that confidence, because you know what? I've seen this myself. You know when you might do this yourself. You're down the local park, or you're down your five-a-side, or even if you're playing in a game, you hit an absolute banger, right? Or you're practicing your penalties or something. You put it right in the top corner. You're confident. The next one, you don't concentrate as much, because you just think, I'm unstoppable. And you put it over the bar. And that's what I mean. United at the moment, it's almost like they get that moment of confidence and then they switch off because they think, yeah, we're really good. The most important time in life when you achieve something is the time after it, where you make sure that you maintain that achievement. And that's where United are going wrong at the moment. David says, Mark, you're also spot on with Harry Kane claim. It's the same about his players. If they've done their research about Ten Hag, which I have, he always buys players he's worked with previously, says David. And why should you need motivation to play for Manchester United? These players shouldn't need telling it's a privilege. Well, Jack, that's recruitment, and that's been a problem at the club for a very, very long time. On Jaden Sancho, obviously Ten Hag has alluded to the fact that we've got options in the right wing position, but some of them are not available at the moment. Anthony, who knows how long that will go on for. I mean, it could literally be months. Hopefully not, but it could be. We'll have to wait and see. Donald's expecting a huge performance from United tonight. Fucking come on, I can't wait, mate. And but with Jaden Sancho, I just feel that sometimes we have a bit of a witch hunt culture, certainly in this country. And I think that where I will always draw the line, and I have said this about Sancho before, was that a few weeks ago, around the tweets, there was some stuff about his attitude coming out, about how he plays, basically he can be quiet in training and then he can be really animated. And, I'm not really interested in that. I don't really care. I don't want to analyse Jaden Sancho's personal life and his character traits. I want to analyse Jaden Sancho as a Manchester United footballer because, as I've said before, there are certain legends of this club who are complete arseholes and were complete arseholes when they played for the club. And, you might see some of these people on TV and go, oh, I love them. They're a great legend. Oh, what a laugh. They're a knobhead, right? It's true. It's well established. It's well known. And that doesn't mean they're not a legend of the club. So if such and such is a complete knobhead and arrogant off the pitch, but is a legend and will always be a legend, why are people dissecting what Jaden Sancho's like off the pitch in relation to whether he's shy or noisy, or whether he hangs around with Jesse Lingard, or whether he, goes to church 4 times a day? It matters not. Their job is what they do on the football pitch, and looking for reasons in their personal life as to why they fail on the football pitch. That's not our job. That's Man United's job. So if I see a picture with Jesse Lingard and Jaden Sancho, ideally I wouldn't want Jaden Sancho hanging around with Jesse Lingard for obvious reasons. I think Lingard has wasted his career and has got his own issues, and he's not a Man United player, and I don't think he's the right role model. I'd love to see Jaden Sancho hanging around with Cristiano Ronaldo or someone like that. But that's Jaden Sancho's life. And he, as much as people might think Jesse Lingard is a bit of a clown, what if Jaden Sancho's got 3 or 4 other friends who are absolute wankers and they've got a bigger influence on him? So I just think it's stupid when people start going, oh, he's hanging around with Lingard, that's why he's a failure. I mean, that's just so... it's just so wrong to do that. I mean, the point is, only Jaden Sancho can take responsibility for his situation. And whether he's capable of doing that or not, I don't know. He needs to surround himself with better people who, can make him a better player. That's what it's all about. And if he's got people around him saying, you're in the right, mate, you're going to be a superstar no matter what, and it's going to be Ten Hag's loss, well, I'm sorry, that's not the work ethic. I say it to my kids all the time. They'll get a setback, they'll get an injury or something like that, they'll get really upset because that's the natural reaction of anybody. But then I'll say, look, I've been here a lot longer than you. I've had loads of setbacks, and they actually make you better. If you don't make that trial, if you don't score that goal, if you are on the bench, if you don't get the grades you want, sometimes that can be better for you, because if you just get everything you want, you can become complacent. You can lose that, you get that confidence, but you don't have that concentration. There's nothing more motivating, and there's no better experience than falling off the horse and having to dust yourself down and get back on. And I think that, some of these footballers just don't have that round them. They've just got people telling them how great they are all the time. And I think Ten Hag has hinted at it, that Jaden Sancho can be back involved with Manchester United. It's up to him. So basically, read between the lines. I don't care what Sancho's doing in his personal life. I don't care if he's playing FIFA or EA FC until 3 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, that's not a good idea, but if he wants to do it, he won't be the first footballer to blow his career down the... look at Ravel Morrison. Look at... The thing is, look at George Best, one of the greatest players that's ever played the game. His career was basically done in his mid-20s because of drink and everything else. So, look, Gaza, injury. He won't be the first player to throw his career down the pan. And he won't be the first player to throw his career down the pan because of his own decisions. Let him make his own decisions. There is a pathway back, but he's got to want to go down it. And at the moment, it doesn't look like he does. De Ligt was speaking in an interview and said how Ten Hag helped him as a player, made him understand how to be a true professional on and off the pitch. And that's great, Total Football, because you've got to want to listen. And it doesn't appear that some of these players want to listen. And that's their choice. Take everything Luckhurst says with a pinch of salt. He was talking about United's next summer targets a week after the window closed. He's a spin merchant, says MT90. And slightly off topic, Mark, some of the stories coming out in recent weeks talk about the immense influence of the Glazers in the choice of new signings. What are your thoughts, says MOT? I'll be absolutely honest. I've never for 1 minute thought that the Glazers have anything to do with signings because they are clueless. They're absolutely clueless. There's just no point. Absolutely no point. So I don't think they do. I think they might have a say on who can be sold, but I doubt. They know. Have you ever watched them watch a game of football? They're like a goldfish. They're like this. I genuinely think you could sit them down and go, "What's VAR? What's a penalty? What's handball?" Don't talk to them offside. I genuinely, they really do come across as they know absolutely nothing. So how are they going to know about, no, let's not buy De Jong, let's buy Casemiro instead. Like, they won't know those sort of things. So I don't think they are. I think ultimately United, look, the Glazers are the worst and that they're a top of the mountain. But there's a lot more incompetence in the decision making than that. I don't think John Murtough knows what he's doing at this level. I certainly don't think Richard Arnold knows what he's doing at this level, and they're running the club day to day. What Erik Ten Hag needs is an absolute elite director of footballer or sporting director who is sat there with him saying, "No, I don't think this is a good idea." I mean, imagine Ralph Rangnick and Ten Hag having a conversation. Imagine Erik Ten Hag. You're down your local pub or restaurant today, or cafe. You walk in, you order yourself a skinny latte or whatever it is, whatever crap. I'll just have a coffee, please. Maxwell House, fine. You're sitting there, and on the next table, you've got Ten Hag and Rangnick having a conversation. And you're just in awe as you listen to them passionately and in-depthly obsess and talk about football on a technical level that, you dream about. You absolutely dream about it, right? Now, substitute Rangnick for Murtough and Ten Hag. Do you think that conversation is anywhere near that level? And that's the problem. I'm not saying Murtaugh's not terrible at his job, but I think he belongs at Preston or Southampton or Everton. I do not think he belongs. It's like Scott McTominay starting for Man City. I'm not saying he couldn't do a job for Everton, but he ain't a Man City midfielder. And this is where people don't get it. We're more than happy to say McTominay, Donny, Maguire, they're not good enough for Man United, but they could play for West Ham. It's exactly the same with the sporting director. John Murtough is not a Man United sporting director. He might well be able to do it for Everton, but he ain't. And people don't get that. They're not open-minded enough to say it's the same as players. Our CEO should probably be CEO of Birmingham City. Our director of football should probably be director of football for Stoke. But they're doing the job for Man United. They can do the job, but they're not good enough. And we need somebody who sits there with Ten Hag and goes, "Eric, I've looked at the team and this is what I think. And I've got a whole PDF about it. Right, I'm looking at the right back situation. I really like Aaron Wan-Bissaka and I really like Delot, but I'm looking at the evolution a year down the line. Are we any further forward? Wan-Bissaka still very good defensively, but goes to ground a lot, and his forward game is a bit hit and miss. Delot going forward really good, but tends to switch off defensively. If we don't see any improvement in the next 6 months on either of those players, we're sort of treading water, and we should probably remove one of them, keep one of them, and bring a progressive all-rounder in." And that's nothing against Delot and Wan-Bissaka. It's just that we're sort of treading water. Neither of them give us the total package. So keep one as a backup and move one on. Looking at the midfield, Eric, look, I love Casemiro. Let's see how Amrabat goes. We've moved Fred on. McTominay should have gone, but that's not my fault. We do need to be looking at the next 5 years in the midfield. You look at what Arsenal are doing with Declan Rice. He's got a young profile. Man City will make those changes. Liverpool have rebuilt their midfield and it's young. We need to be looking at that midfield in the next 18 months. I still think up front we need a top-class striker. You know, I love Rasmus, but if he gets injured or can he play 3 times a week, we need more there. And that's the sort of conversation the director of football should be having with Ten Hag. And Ten Hag should be saying, well, I don't know. Those conversations should be taking place. And I don't think they are. And it needs people who are of the elite level. We need to smash Burnley 4 or 5-0, says Trey. We just need to win tonight. I'll take a 1-0. But yeah, I'd love to smash the shit out of them. I really, really do. Obviously, all of this is underpinned by ownership. You know, the Glazers have never sacked anybody in a position of power. I don't think we've ever sacked a CEO. We only had a director of football, Mark for director of football. I'd love to do it, Jims. I'd love to do it. I think a lot of you would probably do a better job than Richard Arnold and John Murtagh. But that's just naivety from people who go, man thinks he can do a better job than John Murtagh. I genuinely think you and I have done a better job than some of our managers over the last few years. I mean, what you don't realise in football is there's a lot of money in there, but the skill level actually isn't as great as you think. Football is just a very simple game by people who earn great money and are obsessive about it. And that is why people like Pep Guardiola are right at the top of the pile, because they're like geniuses. They spend so much time analysing it and taking a simple game and making it ridiculously technical and almost untouchable. But there's some right chances in football, as we know. And United, collectively, do employ a lot of chances. But I don't want to talk about the Glazers today because I want to talk about Man United winning. But these changes we need to make. Look, if I buy a failing restaurant, I'm not going to keep the people who make it fail. I'm going to buy that restaurant, I'm going to rebrand it, and I'm going to bring in the best. And that's why we need new ownership. Because new owners aren't going to keep the failing chef. You know, they're not going to keep the failing matronne or whatever they call them. They're going to get rid of them. And that's what needs to happen. And the Glazers won't do that, because the Glazers are so incompetent. Here's a lesson for you. The Glazers are so incompetent. They kept Ed Woodward about 6 years longer than they should have done. Ed Woodward should have lost his job years ago. Ed Woodward sacked and recruited managers on the regular. He should have been sacked himself, because that's incompetent. But they kept him and allowed him to retire or resign. You know why the Glazers do it? Because they're so dodgy. They like to keep people who are loyal to them, who won't expose them. And that's the most important thing. They're a money-making exercise. As long as they've got people who will keep their secrets and keep their back and make them money, that's all they're bothered about. And that's why they never sack anybody. That's why they'll never get rid of a CEO, because they want people who will just maintain their focus, which is money. Okay, right. Today looks like this. If you're interested in a watch along, I'm going to do 3 o'clock on That's Football. There's not an amazing array of games at 3 o'clock, but it's at 3 o'clock, so we'll do that. I might even play a bit of FIFA while I'm watching it as well. 3 o'clock on That's Football for that. We are live at 6:30 tonight with countdown to kickoff, 8 o'clock kickoff. So we'll be live on the United stand for that. Lots to get involved with today. 8 o'clock, can't wait for it. Man United win. I'm so pumped up for this. I hope you are as well. It's going to be a big game. I mean, we can't be having me losing it about Burnley. It cannot happen. And also, the FIFA career mode started yesterday. Loads of people loving the fact that it's back. It's on YouTube. It's not on Twitch. It's on YouTube. The link's in the live chat. Check it out. The Everton and the Arsenal and Spurs games were fantastic. I'm trying to figure out if I've got more points than Ten Hag. Well, obviously I have. I've got more points than Ten Hag, even though I didn't win all my games. Check it out. FIFA Career Mode, not FIFA Career Mode, EAFC Career Mode with Manchester United and Goldbridge. Links in the live chat. Make sure you subscribe to that channel because we're back on Monday. Loving having the Career Mode back. And I will speak to you all a little bit later. Keep that mood up today, whether you're walking your dog, cutting your grass, get that emotion in. 8 o'clock tonight, we rise. Come on, lads. Let's do it. And ladies, I was talking about the players when I said lads.